What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Salt and Pauper video. We are going to continue our Phyrexia All Will Be One Pauper set review. Before we jump into the color review for green, we're going to do a quick recap of all the new rules and token types for this new set so that you can evaluate all these cards with me. But before we get to that, if you guys would do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. It really does help the channel grow, and it's a free way for you guys to support me and the Pauper content for this channel. As usual, guys, make sure you hit the like button if you do enjoy the video. Comment below for the algorithm, and let's jump right in. First off, we have oil counters. Oil counters are a new type of counter that will be placed on permanents and tracked. Think of it like charge counters or energy, similar to those type of effects. These creatures and or machines or artifacts mostly are going to have abilities that require you to spend oil counters to activate. Next up, we have a returning mechanic, Proliferate. For those of you who don't know how this works, I'll give you the exact text, but it is a keyword. It's an action that states choose any number of permanents and or players that have a counter, then give one additional counter of each kind that permanent or player already has. So for each permanent or player you choose, they get an extra counter of every counter they have. You don't get to pick a specific kind of counter to proliferate. Say that this player has a poison and an experience counter, right? Poison is good for you, experience is good for them. If you want to proliferate them, you have to give them both. So keep that in mind. It's a small interaction, but it might be useful to know about. Next up, we have Corrupted. Corrupted is a new keyword that is going to alter cards based on the amount of poison a player has. Corrupted triggers if a player has 3 or more poison counters, specifically an opponent. So you will see spells that have additional effects or better effects if your opponent has 3 or more poison counters. Speaking of poison counters, what are poison counters? Poison counters are a tracked counter on players that are given through Infect, Toxic, some other effects on cards that will just straight up give poison counters. But if a player ever has 10 or more poison counters, they lose the game. Think of this like an emblem. You just track them outside of life totals, and if they ever have 10, they lose. Speaking of ways to give people poison counters, Toxic. Toxic is a new keyword that is replacing Infect from older Phyrexian type sets. Toxic is a static number of poison counters this creature grants during combat. So a Toxic 2 creature, regardless of its power in combat, will deal its regular damage. In addition, it will also grant 2 poison counters. This effect does stack. So if you have a Toxic 2 creature and you give it Toxic 1, it will give 3 poison counters if it hits a player. Keep in mind, this effect does not use the stack. It resolves with damage, similar to Lifelink. It is not a triggered ability. How is this different from Poisonous? If you're familiar with that keyword, I mean, the long and short of it is it's not. Yes, technically, poison was a triggered ability, so it resolved after damage, but there's not a whole lot of gameplay scenarios in which you're going to need to know that difference. But otherwise, it is the new way to give players poison counters. And lastly, we have a new rebel ability called Mirrodin. Mirrodin is a keyword found on some equipment in the set that creates a 2/2 red rebel creature token when the equipment enters the battlefield and then attaches the equipment to it. So think of this like the new Living Weapon. Living Weapon was an older version of a Phyrexian ability on equipment that made a 0/0 germ token and attached the equipment as it entered play. This is a 2/2 body at standard. So it is more expensive. You'll see a lot of the equipment in this set cost more mana than you would otherwise think they should, but they do come with a 2/2 creature automatically wearing it, so that is something to keep in mind. All right, there's one last new thing to talk about, which is a new token type called a Phyrexian Mite. These are 1/1 artifact creature tokens that have Toxic 1 and cannot block. Lots of cards are creating these. Sometimes they create it on ETB, sometimes they create it on Death, but remember, these cards have Toxic, so they're going to deal combat damage and poison counters, and they can't block, so that's a really important thing to be aware of in this limited. That wraps up all the rules, guys. Let's go ahead and jump right into the color reviews. Alright, guys. Welcome back. What's up, Josh? You ready to tackle some of these green cards?
Oh man, I'm willing to tackle at least one of them.
Really? I'm interested in finding out which one that is. So let's get started. Let's see. First up, we have Adaptive Sporesinger, which is a 2/2 Phyrexian Druid for 3 mana, 2 and a green. It's got Vigilance, and when it enters the battlefield, choose one. Target creature gets +2/+2 in Vigilance or Proliferate. What are your thoughts here?
I mean, it's really not that amazing on its own, but the fact that you can give a creature +2/+2 in Vigilance really scales up with the quality of the other creatures you're playing before it, like the 1 mana or 2 mana creatures. So whatever you cast before this is really going to appreciate Adaptive Sporesinger, but I'm not going to really feel happy about the turn after I play this.
Sure.
There might be a proliferate thing as well that you want to do, but for the most part, I think you're going to want to push damage with this card.
Yeah, so I was looking at it, and this seems very much to me like, what was it? I think it was like Sporebright or Pollenbright Druid,
Yeah.
which was a 2-drop that like lets you give something a 1/1 counter or proliferate.
Yes.
And I think that card is significantly better than this card. I like that +2/+2 in Vigilance comes, like, it just gives itself to whatever you have on the board that can attack, which is very good at pushing damage. But yeah, 3 mana for this effect on a 2/2 seems like a lot to me. This card's going to absolutely smack in Limited. I mean, this card might make the cut in Cube, because this is like a really good, like, tempo-y kind of value card at 3. But Pauper Constructed, I don't think this is making any waves. What do you think?
Yeah. Cube, I think for sure would appreciate this in addition to the Pollenbright Druid. In fact, the turn after Pollenbright, I think you're going to feel real happy with this. But I don't think it's going to make any waves outside of it.
Definitely. All right. Next up is Branchblight Stalker, which is a 3/1 Phyrexian Elf Scout, which is a 2-mana spell for a green and a colorless. You get Toxic 2 on your 3/1. Well, I just to call out, because as we tend to do, tracking relevant creature types. This is an elf for some reason. I don't know if that's gonna be relevant, but you want to know these things. So this is an elf. Don't know how good the elf is. I'm not a fan of this card personally. I understand it gets in for some beats, a lot, but not a fan, man. 3/1 is not usually what I want to be attacking with. I'm not really a fan of like Blade of the Sixth Pride type effects, and this doesn't have any evasion. Giving it trample, doesn't really equate to how much poison it's gonna give, because it's still only 2 per hit. I don't know. This feels like a card, just like design wise, that should have had some form of evasion, like what is it, like the cliffside. What's the 2-drop
Can't
in
be blocked by
Boggles?
creatures without flying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Honestly, it's got Scout in there as well. I don't quite remember.
Yeah.
Oh, Ledgewalker. Solana Ledgewalker.
Oh, right, Ledgewalker. This seems like something that should have had some sort of built-in evasion. Obviously, Toxic 2 is a lot of Toxic. And, dealing an effective 4 damage is really high for a 2-drop. but it's got to get in there, right? And this is going to trade down like 97% of the time. So, I just not a fan of this one. I don't think it's ever going to actually connect with people is the problem for me. And without any type of evasion, I just don't think it's going to get there.
Yeah, no evasion, no haste or anything as well.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to plop this down and then watch them watch you not attack.
Yeah.
Because they left a blocker up.
Yep.
And then so it's not great. I will say it does have the right style of toxic, and the fact that it doesn't kill with damage before it kills with poison counters. And that's really the only success I could say with this card.
Sure. If there is a green-blue version of the Infect deck, this may make the cut just because it is another 2-drop Infect quote-unquote creature that you can follow up like Blighted Agent and Glistener Elf with. It also still it goes pretty well with Thrumming Bird because if you can hit them one time, then Thrumming Bird or Blighted Agent to follow that up, you've triggered Corrupted, which means that your counter spells are online. So, I mean, maybe there's something here, but I think people are going to work pretty hard to make this card better when in reality you could just play the Infect dudes and they would be better.
Yeah, I think I would more want to play Blight Mamba.
Sure.
Even though it does have one less power, I think that it's going to be more effective in the way, just because
Blight
it's got
Mamba is
Regenerate.
a good card, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even like Ichor Claw Mirror, I'd rather play.
Yep. Harder to block.
Yeah, exactly. And it's got evasion on that. Like, it'll kill your 3/3 if you try and stop it.
All right. Let's see. What's next?
Oh, thinking about it, is Branchblight Stalker a better Ichor Claw Mirror?
No. Ichor Claw
All
only
right,
costs
so
2.
you can pump
So.
Ichor Claw.
Yeah.
Right. Dang it. I
Let's
almost found something. Sorry, moving on.
Next up, Carnivorous Canopy. 3 mana sorcery. For 2 and a green, you get destroy target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. And then if that permanent's mana value was 3 or less, proliferate. What do you think about this one? This one seems interesting to me. I wish it wasn't a sorcery. If this was an instant, it might be good enough.
Yeah, I don't know why it needs to be a sorcery. Because, I mean, we've seen the destroy artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying before.
Or 3 with instant. Right?
Yeah, for 3 mana with instant. Same mana cost. And then the fact that you're putting a restriction on this to proliferate as well. Yeah. Granted, I don't think that this should cost 1 more. And I also don't think that should make this a sorcery from an instant.
Yeah.
I think you're putting the restriction on it to proliferate. Both of those.
I think personally, to make this an instant, I think the way that I would make this an instant is very simple. Instead of saying permanent's mana cost was 3 or less, it should say 3 or more. And I think it's better. Or in fact, I think it's slightly weaker. Because I think I think that you are more likely to hit something that's 3 or less with this card most of the time. Than you are to hit something 4 or more. So I think that if they really wanted it to be like, you know, the restriction wasn't enough of a downside to make this an instant, you could just make it a less consistent downside to make it an instant. And I think you do that by just flipping less to more. And boom, there you go. You have a 3-minute instant that's much better than what we have as a sorcery.
That is fair. Because I'm thinking we really only have the enforcers, don't we? That this would hit. And Pestilence.
And Frogmite.
Oh my good. Frogmite is being played again.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
But yeah, there really isn't that much.
Mm-hmm.
All
I
right.
don't think that validates playing this card at that point, because there's better 1 mana ways to deal with creatures like that.
Absolutely.
So I think it has to be less. But I think that they just have to accept that it needs to be an instant to be played.
Yeah. All right, that's a fair argument too. Maybe it just doesn't need to be worse, and it just needs to be better.
Tired of being bad? Just get good instead.
Right, just try being better. All right. Next up, we have Contagious Vorrac, which is it's a 3/3 Phyrexian Boar Beast for 3 mana, with 2 and a green. And this has an actual paragraph of text. So buckle your seatbelts, hang on to your butts. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a land from among them, put it in your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. If you didn't put a card into your hand this way, proliferate. So this is 3/3 for 3 Satyr Wayfinder or proliferate.
Okay.
Well, it's not Wayfinder because they don't go to your graveyard. So
It's Wayfinder-esque.
yeah,
I don't remember
close
if there's
enough.
to put them on the bottom. Or which
Free
one's
Folk
good.
Tiller, maybe? I don't remember which one puts them on the bottom. But yeah, 3/3 for 3 with ETB proliferate or put a land from the top of your deck into your hand. I like 3/3 for 3 stat lines, I'll be honest. Like I saw a mountain of text on this card and I was hoping it would be something good and it wasn't, and I'm still trying to find ways to like it. Sadly, I don't think I'm gonna get there on this one. I think 3/3 ETB proliferate for 3 probably isn't good enough. With no text box effectively. It needs a keyword or something. This needs like trample or I don't know. Can't be blocked by creatures with power 1 or less or something. I don't know. It needs something to take it over into playable, you know?
I can tell you with like 99% certainty that I will never play this card.
Yeah.
And I can tell you with 100% certainty that I will never play this card and be happy that I played it.
Yeah, that's
because
fair.
it says bottom of your library in a random order.
I
What
know.
the
We've
hell,
talked about
Watsy?
this. I hate this. I hate this design. Stop making me cut 3 cards to my opponent before I put them on my bottom of my library. I just stop it. Just never ever. Just in any order is really not that difficult. It's not even that much of a time sink on Moto. Like, if your argument is that they're doing this for MTGO, they don't need to. It's really not that many clicks.
Right. And then, oh no, what if we make Charbelcher too strong? Don't worry, this card will not make Charbelcher too strong.
That's not the problem here. All right, let's see. Next up is Copper Longlegs, which is a 1/3 Phyrexian spider for 2, colorless and a green. It has reach, and it says 2 mana, a green and a colorless. Sacrifice it, proliferate. You know, I'm not hugely opposed to this card. I think there might be something here. This is a pretty decent card.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a huge fan of creatures that can block fairies real quick.
Yep. 2 mana 1/3 reach is not an irrelevant text box. I like that it can sacrifice itself for proliferate. I hate the thought of Phyrexian spiders. But yeah, no, I mean, this is a pretty reasonable card. I don't think this is God, what was the card from Neo? The like, or no, was it Brothers War? The artifact might that like sacrificed itself to
for
exile.
destroy an artifact or enchantment.
Yeah, and then you gain 3 life or something.
The uncommon one's like
that card was great. Terminal Might or something. Network Terminal Might, I don't remember, but that card's significantly better than this, but this card gives me those kind of vibes, you know? I'm very mad on this card. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's great. It's not gonna make the cut in most Pauper decks, but it's not gonna be bad either. There's some PDH decks that'll play this. I'd
Yeah.
consider running it in the cube. I don't think I will, but I'll consider it.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose depending on how many like 2/2 flyers are
Yeah.
in there, like if the flying deck gets out of control,
Well, and
maybe.
this does
But
have some kind of borderline synergy with both black, green, and green, white, which both kind of have counters. Like white, green is a primary counters archetype, and black,
mm,
green has like a sort of sub theme of counters in it.
hmm
Um,
and then that's the way you're justifying it in cube is the way that I would expect this card to be justified in any deck that plays it.
yeah.
You're not playing this because any one aspect of it is amazing.
No, but
You're
altogether, it's like just good enough.
altogether exactly. It does all of the things you need it to, and
Except
that's
gain
good enough.
life. This
Does
said
almost all of the things that you need it to.
This needs to say proliferate, gain 3 life, and then it would do all the things I need it to do.
Gain 3?
Yeah.
Ooh. That's fair. Just the food cost.
Yep.
And okay, yeah, I could see that. See gain
And
3.
also be an artifact creature and a food.
No.
All right. Maybe a little much. Moving on.
Down boy.
Next up is Ichorspit Basilisk. This is another 1/3. It's a Phyrexian Basilisk, but this one costs 3, 2 and a green. It has Death Touch and Toxic 1. Not a fan of this card. It's called Ichorspit Basilisk. It not only cannot spit, it doesn't have reach, it doesn't have anything to do with spitting.
Yeah, no first strike, no nothing. This card makes me sad because it feels like it doesn't know what it wants to do. This card would be fine attacking, but it needs to hit 10 times. I don't know any creature that hits 10 times in a game.
Well, I like that it has Death Touch. That means it's less easy to block, and it's a 1/3, which means it's not going to die to chump blocking. But I don't like that this is a 3-drop. This needed to be a 2-drop, and then it was good enough.
Well, yeah, but it's like at a 1 power creature with the 3 toughness there with Death Touch. Generally, you want to block with it. I know I would. I'd like to not take damage. But then the toxic one is like, nah, man, you want to swing with this.
Yeah. I think this should have been a 2-drop, and then I would have been okay with attacking with it, because it would have a body substantial enough to be able to attack into a lot of stuff and only really trade up. But as a 3-drop, it's going to trade straight across a lot. And that's just not enough. This card needs to trade up, or it needs to get in like 3 times, and I just don't think it's going to do that.
Just first strike and infect. Boom. Done.
Right. Yeah. Or just tack reach onto here. Death Touch, reach, toxic 1, 1/3 for 3. I would be like, that's enough keyword soup for me to be interested.
Yeah, and then it would need to be played in the poisonous deck because otherwise you're playing the archers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next up, we have Lattice-Blade Mantis. Dude, this art is crazy. It's a 4/3 Phyrexian insect for 4 mana, 3 and a green. It says enters the battlefield with 2 oil counters. It attacks. You may remove an oil counter. If you do untap it, it gets 1/1. Wow. So this card effectively attacks as a 5/4 Vigilance twice for 4 mana. It doesn't have Trample, which is a big hit for me. But dude, this art looks incredible.
The art is pretty insane.
Yeah, this art's wild.
And I did think of something that I enjoyed about the design of oil counters.
Which is?
Unlike energy counters, they do not go to the player.
Okay.
Because I really hated keeping track of energy counters.
Well, I will say, my only thing about this having oil counters is that it's like one of the only Phyrexian things we've seen that's very clearly biological. This is not a machine. Why does it need oil? It's called Lattice-Blade Mantis because its blades are literally made of vined lattices. Like, this machine, this Phyrexian thing was made by Glissa. Like this is coming right out of the Tangle Wire. Like this is a green like Phyrexian tainted creature. This is not a machine. What is the oil doing here? I don't get why some Phyrexian things have oil and some don't when things like this that are very clearly like biological mutations need oil and things that are like strictly machines like that last basilisk we saw or
Spider before.
like that, yeah, like the spider before that, or even the what was it, the blue one that was like very clearly like a
Oh,
quicksilver
the
metallic
Drake.
drake.
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, why does this need oil to like move and live? Like, this is very clearly just a biological creature that's been mutated. I don't get it, man. Their oil counters make no sense. It's got oil on it. I'm out. Like, I just need to stick to my own rule. Why am I even thinking about this?
Mm. Yeah, I was just saying something about the mechanic I enjoyed. This card's not really that great. 4/3, and then it has an attack trigger. I mean, this thing's you're never playing this in constructed. There's
No,
no way that
no,
you're
no, no.
doing this, and I don't see this existing in a cube either.
Probably not. It's too clunky, and we have too many 4-drops already.
Yeah, like there's better 4-drops that I think.
Yeah, I mean, this card makes Renegade Freighter look insane.
Renegade Freighter makes Renegade Freighter look insane.
Well, what Renegade Freighter makes this card look absolutely awful is what I'm getting at.
Oh yes, that's fair.
Comparative nature of the two, very similar abilities, and Renegade Freighter is miles better than this card.
Absolutely.
All right. What do we got next? We got Maze's Mantle. It is a 3-mana aura. With for 2 and a green, you get Flash, enchant creature. When it enters the battlefield, if enchanted creature has toxic, that creature gains hexproof until end of turn. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2. Huh?
Yeah. So we've gone on rants about toxic. We've gone on rants about pumping specifically creatures with toxic.
What is this card?
it I don't know. I don't know what the card wants to do.
It wants to go on a toxic creature, but it wants to kill them with regular damage. It's a hexproof flash aura? What? Dude, this is a wild design. I don't know who pitched this card, but y'all are crazy. This is such a, like, cluster mass. Like, they just took a bunch of cards that didn't get approved and they smashed them together with, like, one line of text from each one. And this is what we got. That's what happened. That's how this card came to.
There's a blue enchantment from the last time we went to Theros that reads like this, just without the toxic part of it, and it's only +1/+1. That card was really good. This card is not that.
Really good? No, it's not. Yeah,
So,
this seems like a mismatch for me. This is a pass for me. This is a pass for me. I'm not seeing any sort of redemption here.
Yep, not a fan.
All right. Well, moving right along, we're just gonna stroll right by that one. We got Oil-Gorger Troll. Please just allow it to pull oil counters off of stuff. Otherwise, I'll be really sad. So it's a 3/4 Phyrexian Troll Warrior for 5 mana. So it's got 3 and 2 green in its mana cost. Wait,
Wickerbow Elder, this is not.
when it ETBs, you gain 3 life. Then, if you control a permanent with an oil counter on it, draw a card. Alright. First off, looking at the art, we really need to decide what oil is. Because the flavor text of this straight up says, like, metal or flesh, it doesn't matter if it's seasoned with ichor. But that means he's eating stuff that isn't oil. And this is an Oil-Gorger Troll. He's just taking whatever he wants and like salt baying some oil on top of it, and then like that's what he needs. But this is Oil-Gorger, not Oil Enjoyer. And then secondly, like, why doesn't this remove oil counters from stuff? This should straight up say, when it ETBs, target a permanent, remove all oil counters on that permanent, gain 3 life for each oil counter removed this way, and then like corrupted, draw a card.
What is oil? You're right. I'm looking at it.
All right.
He's covered in oil, but I don't see any oil in his mouth.
He's eating blood or flesh or sinew or whatever that pillar's made out of.
Right? But it's most certainly a different color than the oil.
Yep.
Huh.
And it looks like every faction has oil different, right? This card's not good. It's a 3/4 for 5. It's conditional when it ETBs. It can draw you a card. It gains you 3 life. It's not good enough. If this said ETB, gain 3 life, draw a card, I'd be all over it, but that's not what we have here. Any closing thoughts on this one?
No, I really don't like the part where you need a permanent with an oil counter on it.
Yeah.
Like,
I would honestly rather this be corrupted, draw a card. And then give it like Toxic 1. Toxic 2. Whatever. Something.
Toxic 2. Yeah, we've been over that. Yeah. Don't like it. Next card.
Yep. Next up we have Plague Nurse. This art is terrifying. This is a 3/4 Phyrexian Cleric for 4, 3 and a green. It has Toxic 2, and it has 3 mana, 2 and a green. Each other creature you control with Toxic gains Toxic 1. It is additive, so that is an additional 1 Toxic to all creatures with Toxic already. And then you activate it only once each turn, which is just the worst line of text on anything that exists. However, this card's art is absolutely horrifying. And this card itself is, like, really good. If there's a Toxic deck, this card is immediately in that deck. I wish this gave something else. I want this to give each other, like, if we're going to make a Toxic Lord, right, which is kind of what this is trying to be, we need something. This needs to give things with Toxic +1/+1 and Toxic 1, or things with Toxic, Toxic 1 and Trample, or, you know, something. And it just, I don't think 3 mana give everything that already has Toxic slightly more Toxic is enough. Like, do I think this will end games in Limited? Absolutely. But I don't think this is going to end any games anywhere but Limited. And I think that's the problem. This could have been a card that ends a lot more games than the card we got.
Yeah, I think most effectively it would be giving them like Death Touch. Because I think they're, on average, Toxic creatures aren't big enough to capitalize on Trample, and Death Touch is the closest green evasion.
What if it, so hear me, what if, weird suggestion. What if it just said, and ride with me on this, because I think this is a really interesting direction that I would like to have explored. What if this said, Toxic 2, pay 3 mana, 2 and a green, each creature, not each other creature, each creature you control with Toxic gains Infect. And I think for balancing reasons, you'd have to say loses Toxic and gains Infect. But
No. I think gains Infect only would be solid.
I think gains Infect would be absolutely broken. This hits for 5?
Yeah, but you've paid 4 for it, and you're swinging with it on the next turn. So,
nah, I think it said like each other. If each other creature you control with Toxic gains Infect would be fine. or
Sure.
each creature you control with toxic loses toxic and gains infect instead.
The
I think that's kind of where I want this card to be.
power level of the cards that are being played with, it would need to be each creature gains infect. Each creature with toxic gains infect, not loses toxic, and then it would still be 2 turns behind the fastest decks. So I don't think that's a big problem. But if you're
Well, for
focusing
Pauper,
on,
yes, but for everything else, that would be a
yeah,
problem.
if
This
you're
card would be
focusing on, yeah,
instantly played in a lot of other decks.
it would be played in non-constructed formats, which is
That's
really
fair.
what cards want to be.
Yeah, that's fair. The
In
constraint of
Pauper
having to
EDH,
have toxic already definitely is an opportunity cost for this card.
and like I don't see that it needed the activate only once each turn.
I don't either.
I think that's just there to stop people from
Going infinite.
killing on the turn it swings. But
it
it
already
doesn't
only
pump
affects the
them, and it
stuff
doesn't
with
give them
toxic.
hexproof.
And it
Yeah,
only pumps the stuff with toxic already. Like, you're not pumping your 1/1 elves to give them all toxic. Like,
yeah, like it's
this
already got a
should have
huge
just said
limitation
each
on it.
other creature you control gains toxic 1.
Yes,
Because then it would have a
until end of
reason to
turn.
only
Yeah,
attack once, or only activate once.
exactly. But then I think it probably cost 4, and
And
it'd
be
be
an
like you get
uncommon.
your 5th turn. But
It would be
I mean,
4 to it
still,
would be 4 to play, 4 to activate, and it would be an uncommon.
I think that would still make this card really good. And
This card would be the most played Pauper EDH green general in a millisecond, if that's what it did.
it's fair.
All right, moving on. Let's see. What do we got next? Predation Steward. This is a 2/2 Phyrexian elf warrior, another elf, for 2 mana, 1 and a green. It ETBs with 2 oil counters on it. And it says 3 mana, 2 and a green, tap, remove an oil counter. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. Bro, why? You only get 2 oil counters. You have to pay 3 mana to tap and activate it, and you can only do it as a sorcery? I think that this card is best described with the first sentence of its flavor text.
I agree.
Best we move on. This card's awful.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't even because it has oil counters. This is just awful.
Not that we need the excuse. I mean, it is an elf, but you
This
never
is not
play
a good
this.
elf.
Do not ever play this.
This
You
is
will
a
lose.
bad elf even by elf standards.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see. What do we got next? We got Rustvine Cultivator.
It's a good elf.
Oh, it's another elf. This is a 1/2 Phyrexian Elf Druid for 1 green. It has tap, put an oil counter on it. Tap, remove an oil counter, untap. Oh, so it's just bad Arbor Elf.
That's fair. A good elf in the context of this set.
All elves aspire to be part of nature. Only Phyrexia can truly grant that wish. That's not... Huh? Wow, that is just vastly underestimating what nature is.
Glissa got upgraded. She's now Sunslayer.
Yeah. She's not Betrayer anymore. She's Sunslayer.
That's because she killed Sun Titan, isn't it?
God, I hope so. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this card. Even as an elf, like, it has oil counters, bro. I'm out.
Yeah, I need some other way to get oil counters. Like like a landfall oil counter thing.
Right. If this said, like, whenever a land enters play, put an oil counter on it, and then you could tap, remove an oil counter, untap a land, then I might, emphasis on the might, be interested.
And that's only because it would be a 1/2 Llanowar elf.
Genuinely, I would like it if this was a 1/2 Llanowar elf that like let's just redesign altogether. Let's say this is a 1/2 Phyrexian elf druid for 1 green. ETB 3 oil counters. Tap, remove an oil counter, gain 1 green. I'm in.
Fair.
I'm
Okay.
in. That's a good mana elf. It's a 1/2. It's meaningfully different than Llanowar because you only get 3 activations, so it's sort of like a wall of roots.
You know what? I was gonna say that, and it really makes a lot of sense, especially in the art, because it's an elf becoming one with a wall of what
Roots.
seems to be roots.
Yeah. Yeah, would have liked that way better, honestly. And it might have been an oil counter card that I would have endorsed, but instead we got this, and I'm a pass.
Yeah, not really that good.
You said it was a good elf. You got my hopes up.
I said good elf. Yeah, I meant in the context of this set. It does say untapped target land, so there could be something there.
That's true.
But
all right. Let's see.
Isn't.
What's next? We have Ruthless Predation, which is a 2-mana sorcery. 1 in a green says target creature you control gets +1/+2 until end of turn. It fights target creature you don't control. Oh, so this is like the like Savage
Punch.
Savage Punch. That's it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Swipe is for if it's a bear.
Yeah, if it's a bear. But man, it's fights and it's a sorcery. If this was fights, it needs to be an instant, and if it's a sorcery, it needs to be a bite. I can't see this being played over something like Ram Through. Ram Through is like significantly better than this card.
Well, I mean, Ram Through is like primo green removal.
But that's kind of what this card's up against, right? I mean, nobody's playing this card in Constructed Pauper.
Yeah, I mean, no one's playing this.
It needs to beat Ram Through.
Either. You know, like, yeah.
It needs to beat Ram Through. And I don't even think it's getting played in the cube, right? It's 2 mana, it's a sorcery. Most of the good fights are either instant speed fight or sorcery speed bite nowadays. So this is neither of those things.
Or instant speed bites.
Those are great. We just don't have very many.
Yep.
All right. Next up, wow, what a weird art. Yo, this is crazy looking. We have Skyscythe Engulfer. It's a 6/5 Phyrexian Beast for 6, 5 and a green. It has reach, it has trample, and it can't be blocked by creatures with flying. This is a crazy art. I bet even Skitherix would take the long way around this one.
No, I get it, because it's a 6/5 with reach.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And trample. This thing's huge. A 6/5 reach, trample can't be blocked by creatures with flying for 6 is a big boy.
Skittles can regenerate.
And this is an absolutely wild artwork.
Yeah, it's real busy. There's a lot going on.
There is so much happening in here. I feel like I should be searching for Waldo. Or Fwibblethap or, somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of WotC, where is the Find Fwibblethap picture book? That is like easily marketable merch. Dude, you would have sold so many copies of that by now. Make it. Just make it. You don't even have to credit me. I mean, it'd be cool if you did, but you don't even have to. Just make it. I would buy one. Oh. I would. It would be cool. I'd be down.
Just to find the Fwibblethip. You just get in contact with Hasbro. I'm certain that they've got contacts for making books.
Yeah, just comment below if you would buy a Where's Fwibblethap book. I'll make it. The merch needs, or the channel needs merch anyway. Like, comment below, hit the subscribe button. Do all the things. But like, let me know if you would buy that book, cause I'll make it. Enough people are interested. We'll make something happen. There's some cool artists out there. I'm sure. I mean, I collabed with a few for the tokens. I could find somebody that would be down for that project. You know what I mean? But, you know, aside from this being really busy, it's not going to be very busy blocking because nobody's going to put it in their deck.
Yeah, this is like the big green bomb, though.
Oh, yeah. And limited, this card's going to slam a lot of tables. This is going to hit a lot of faces. It's a 6/5 with trample in limited. It's going to be played.
Yeah.
Assuming green is not absolute garbage. And to be honest, so far green looks pretty weak from the limited from the limited perspective, at least in the cards. But we saw a lot of like efficient 2 and 3s that have big butts, so maybe green is able to kind of slow the game down enough to get to these big late game threats. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. But that's about it for this game.
Next up is Thirsting Roots. This is a card a lot of people are talking about. I stayed away from spoilers, and even I've heard this card. This is a green sorcery. For 1 green, it says search your library for a basic land, reveal it, and put it in your hand, then shuffle or proliferate. Choose one. This card seems like kind of a spoof on Abundant Harvest. Right? It's like pick the land or pick the not land. And then like you get a land or you get the not land thing. In this case, that not land thing is just proliferating all of your counters. I like this card. I think this card is good, and if that green blue or green black infect Thrumming Bird, you know, deck exists, this card is almost certainly in it.
Yeah, I think so as well. I want to break this card, but it would require 2 things. It would need something that removes counters to draw cards.
Mm-hmm.
Probably need 2 of those in play with counters on them already.
Okay.
And then it would also need something that you can remove counters from and generate mana.
I know how you do that one.
Prism. Yeah.
No. You can do it on a creature that's in green.
Oh. Did we look at it 3 cards ago?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's not from this set. It's a spirit.
Okay. So we would need something like that in order to make proliferate worth doing just on its own there.
Sure.
Unless you
Prism
know,
be
killing
easier, but
counters. But then you would also need a payoff. And so that alone, it's like 5 cards.
Weather the
so
Storm.
It's probably not going to work. Which one?
Weather the Storm. Just make your payoff Infinite Storm.
It's fair.
If it's good enough for familiars, it's good. It should be good enough for like green familiars, right? Infinite Storm for Infinite Life seems like a solid win con for several decks in the format right now. It just needs to be fast and consistent. And I don't know that green can be consistent because it lacks things like Preordain.
Yeah, that's fair.
But maybe. I mean, Abundant Harvest goes a long way to helping you. If you can kind of refine your deck down to exactly what you need, Abundant Harvest can get you there a lot of the time.
Yeah, so does the other one, the Ancient Stirrings, if you're hitting something
sure, colorless. And then there's like, you know, it's like commune with nature.
Oh yeah, commune with spirits.
Commune with spirits, yeah.
1. Then there's commune with the gods, and then there's commune with.
Yeah, there's a lot of communes. Anyway, this card's pretty good. I expect this card to at least get tinkered around with. Somebody's gonna play this card. Also, shout out to Wolf Skull Jack, the absolute most badass artist credit I've ever seen.
There's no way.
That is the best artist credit I've ever seen. Whoever got that through PR, whoever got that like approved by WotC for print on the card, kudos, bro. That's awesome.
All right.
All right. Anyway, I would love for that to have been the last card so we could end on that absolute high note. But unfortunately, we have one more card. Hopefully, it's just as good. It could be. Let's see what it is. It is. Oh, I knew this one. Tyrranax Attrocity. Phyrexian Dinosaur, it's a 4/4 for 5 mana, 3 and 2 green. It has haste and toxic 3. This is the highest toxic we saw on a common, right? Toxic 3.
Correct. Yeah, it doesn't get higher than that.
And it has
Was
haste on a 4/4, which is like pretty good. This to me is the green bomb in the set for limited. Like, this is going to end far more games than the 6/5 for 6. But also, I think this card actually got kind of hosed with it being a common. I think this card actually is going to be significantly less playable because it is a common. If it was an uncommon, it would be a commander in Pauper EDH, and it would be hilariously powerful as like green Skithirex in Pauper Commander. But unfortunately, it is a common, so it's not able to be a commander. And for that reason, I think it's actually going to get played less. Funny enough. It will get played less in Pauper because it is a common. How ironic is that?
Yeah. I don't know that this card's gonna win so many games in really anything outside of draft. Like maybe you want 2 of these guys and they just rush in, but
yeah, 3 toxic and 6 damage in poison counters and 4 damage in regular damage is a lot of damage on a 5-drop that has haste.
And you know what I would have liked to see for a corrupt or a poison counter kind of payoff?
Creature? Oh, payoff. Sure. What do you got?
It would have been to remove poison counters from a player, from your opponent, and deal damage instead, or to them.
That would have been really cool, like a green like Siphon Soul almost.
That way you keep them
corrupted.
Yeah, and that way you can keep them at 3 exactly for the corrupted, but still get them, get the damage on them.
What if it was like a green fireball and it was just like remove all poison counters on target player, deal X damage where X is the number of poison counters removed?
And I think you'd want to try it. You said from target player?
Yeah. But you don't get to redirect the damage. You remove all poison counters from target player. Oh, and then
and
then deal X damage to that player.
Yeah.
You can't like stack your own poison and then wipe it to nuke somebody else. No.
Yeah. And this damage can't be prevented or redirected, right? You remember that clause?
Yeah, it's remove all poison counters from target player. Then that player takes X damage, where X is the number of poison counters removed. Because then it would let you remove your own poison counters at the cost of a huge chunk of your life, or you could use it to nuke your opponent. It would be a double-edged sword in like the truest sense of the word, but it would give you interaction with your own poison counters, and it would give you interaction and reason for like a payoff in a toxic deck that is a real KO. Using poison counters, but not to kill them with infect or with poison counters.
Yeah, and I think it would be better if it was a remove X, but not pay X. Just pay, like 2 mana, 3 mana at most. Remove X counters as an additional cost.
Sure. I don't want it to be an additional cost.
Oh, you want it to be as part of resolution?
Yeah.
Okay,
that's why I like the one clause. Like,
you're right.
All poison counters,
if it's
damage.
Countered, then you do. Okay, yeah, you're right. So yeah, not additional cost, but then that seems pretty substantial, and be the only card that I know of
that
removes poison counters, and it has an actual real, cost to it.
It'd be a really cool card, and I'm sad that we didn't see one. I'm also sad we didn't get a downshift of Contagion Clasp. That's a big card I was looking for from this set.
Yeah. Name it like Cleanse the Body or something, or Cleanse the Mind or Cleanse the Soul. Some sort of cleansing seems to work.
Right, sure. And that could have been a really cool like thematic moment of one of the Planeswalkers being brought back if that's something that's going to happen in the story. So maybe we get that in March of the Machines. That'd be really cool.
Oh man, I hope so. Watsy, you listening? I only want just like put in something weird in the flavor text, so I know that you took inspiration from me.
And if you really, really, really don't want players to be able to interact with their own poison counters, just make it target opponent.
Eh.
And and honestly, it doesn't even have to cost that much. It's such a like very specific counterintuitive spell. I don't like the X specifically because if it's a choice, if you get to say how much damage you want to deal and how many you want to remove, I think that it has to cost considerably more. I think that you could make it like a genuine like 1 mana green sorcery that said like remove all poison counters from target opponent, deal damage to that player equal to the number of poison counters removed this way.
That's fair. If it's gonna be damage, it's probably gonna have to have some amount of red in there. And honestly, the whole cleansing bit, I'd
Well,
expect
it doesn't
to be
need
like
to
a red
because
white
Hurricane
thing.
dealt damage to players. Green has a precedent of direct damage.
You're right. You're right. All right. Shoot, yeah. Make it 1 green or colorless
and
and green, and we're
it could be a very different spell. Say that you made it like a toxic overrun, right? Like what if it was like a 4 mana spell that was remove all poison counters from target opponent. Creatures you control get plus X, where X is the number of poison counters removed this way.
Oh, that'd be even better.
Like you could get some
better.
really crazy design options
really
with
nice
that sort of effect.
Mm.
I think the direct damage spell would be cooler. Maybe you do something like Whirlwind, where it's like Toxic Deluge, where it's like remove remove all poison counters from an opponent and then deal damage to all creatures with flying and all players where X is the number of damage or poison counters removed this way or something. I don't know. You could do it a bunch of different ways, but a spell that would remove and or interact with the poison counters that your toxic creatures have placed strategically for you to then enable other effects like a finisher with reach for direct damage, like a board wipe, like a board pump, something like that to finish the game, to cash in on those like 6 or 7 poison counters that you've managed to get on a player before they stabilized or before you killed them with regular damage, would be a really cool way to make toxic decent. Because right now it is not.
Yeah, the only reason I was thinking for X would be just to make Corrupted not feel like the absolute worst.
Yeah, but I like the idea of this being a finisher after you cash in on things with Corrupted. But I totally understand the like you don't want to invalidate Corrupted if you have to use it and then you draw a Corrupted spell and feel really awkward because you have like non-bow stuff in your deck.
Yeah, or even if you cast the Corrupted spell and their opponent plays it on themselves.
Sure. Well, so I kind of like the ability of it saying target opponent so that you can't interact with your own poison counters, but maybe they'll change their mind and let you interact with your own poison counters, in which case this could say target player.
Maybe, but I don't want there to be more than 1 card that does it, that lets you interact with your poison counters. Like maybe 2, but it's got to be a limited thing.
I would like it to be target opponent for that specific reason, so that they can print a couple different kinds of it. Maybe it could be the next, Zenith or like Sun cycle, right? Where like the green one removes poison counters and pumps your board, and the red one is a fireball, and the blue one is like draw cards or something, and like a way to cash in on opponents' poison counters, and then you get 1 of each color, so that they can each kind of do something a little bit different. I think that'd be a really cool cycle, and I think it'd be really interesting to be able to interact with your opponent's poison counters and cash in on your toxic damage without having to rely on either killing them with infect damage or 10 poison counters. And it would give kind of this incremental value and like this reason to play toxic. I think that's a really cool design space that I hope they explore, but we'll see because it's not in this set. Anyway, guys, that is the end of the green section. We've got one more section coming up with the colorless cards, and then our final video for Phyrexia All Will Be One will be our top picks. So make sure you keep an eye on the channel for those, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Make sure you drop a like on the video if you've made it this far, and let us know what your favorite card in green was. and what you're most excited to drop into some decks, or if you have a Pauper deck that's like waiting and willing for one of these cards to drop in it. Let us know what you're looking at building with these new cards. Really excited to see what you guys have in mind. So, as usual, guys, goodbye forever. Unless I see you next time. Peace.